Morning everybody, Bart here, Bart's Wood Shop. Thanks for joining me again. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. I know of a lot of times I've talked in the past about turning green wood and how it's going to warp and crack and may not look exactly like it does when it comes off the lathe. One example of that is this little bowl that I have made out of some olive wood. And you can see it's no longer perfectly round. It's got a nice little oval shape to it. And it warped pretty neat. I'm going to bring you over a little bit closer to the light and show you some more things. Alright, so if y'all remember my vase here, well, I did turn it green like I mentioned, and it has developed some pretty good sized cracks. There's one over there. There's another one over here in the back. So these are pretty good sized cracks. This one here I probably would have left alone if it was just whatnot, but this one here kind of goes all the way through. So I think if I want to work on this crack, I may as well work on the other crack as well. Another example is, y'all remember my log chalice that I made in one of my videos here? Well, if you look over here, it's split. Kind of a bummer. I was hoping it would warp rather than split, but it's split right down there. It's got some small cracks here on the base. Those I wouldn't have even worried about. But we got a big one over here. So we're going to see what we can do to work on these cracks and add them as more of like a feature to the wood rather than being a defect. Some people would say, oh, it's no good, it's shot, throw it in the garbage, put it in the fireplace. But we're going to make it pretty. And I think it's going to be pretty interesting. So we're going to go over to my little workbench and I will show you some tips. Okay, here we are at the workbench. I've got my projects all here that we're going to start working on. I think the first thing I want to do is work on this vase. The vase crack, this one here is pretty deep. This one over here, it's not so deep. So we're going to work on one of the smaller crack first, and then we'll work our way up. So one of the things we can do is just use a standard 2-part epoxy and add some pigment to it or some kind of interesting something to it to add a feature to the wood. Another stuff that you can use is this 2-part clear epoxy. This stuff is very expensive. It's like $50 for this little box. It's got 2 bottles in it. You mix them together. It makes a very hard, very clear surface. It's really nice, but again, it's $50. So, we're going to start with the smaller crack, and we're going to use regular 2-part epoxy. And I think I'm going to put a little bit of a couple drops of this black craft paint into it. You can use anything to tint the epoxy that you want. They make specific tints that are designed for the epoxy, but really you can use whatever. For example, here I got this little piece of copper pipe, and I took a file to it, and I made myself some little copper shavings, and you can mix that into the epoxy. You can get a different color sawdust or any type of sawdust that from a different project. Mix that into the epoxy and that'll give you another color. There's really endless opportunities of what you can do with working with epoxy. So for right now, we are just going to start off by mixing some epoxy with some black paint, and we're going to work on filling up this crack. Okay, so I laid down some scrap paper here, and we are going to start by mixing the epoxy. I just use a little piece of wood. You can use a popsicle stick. I use little scraps that are laying around in the shop. So we're going to mix the 2-part epoxy. Put a little bit down here on the paper. And try and get an even amount of both of them. There we go. That should be enough to get us started. And we can always mix more and add more later. Put the lid on it so it doesn't dry. Alright. And we will start mixing. Alrighty, so 24 hours has passed. I pulled the tape off the bottom of this. It filled in real good. It seems to be good and hard. I think that's going to be good once we turn it back down. A little post in here for my reverse chucking. We're going to get my little piece of foam. We're going to put the vase on like so. And then we're going to put this up on the tail, tighten her down. Okay. Alright, that ought to spin nicely. Now, I am going to turn my speed down a little bit. You remember, this is the project that went flying on me at one point because I decided to try to spin it too fast. So I just want to make sure my speed is where it belongs. I'm going to turn it down 1 notch here. And 1 notch there. Tighten her back up. Okay. Let me get my face shield on. Fire this baby up. Okay, it's looking stable. Now we're going to have a lot of wobble because as it dried, it's no longer round. That's okay. Once we're going to shave it on down, we're going to re-round it, and I think it's going to look pretty good. So at this point, I figured I'd let you know that the goblet part did not work out, but we're just going to finish up this project here with the vase, and maybe we'll come back to the goblet at another date. Okay, we're going to sand our way through the grits. Get it all smoothed out again. And then, of course, we're going to have to refinish it. everybody, this is it. This is the Vase, part 2. Love the way the cracks filled in. Looks real nice. Took a little bit of reshaping, but I think it came out pretty good. Now, again, green wood. It will crack, it will warp, it will shape. But all those cracks and those warps, they give you opportunities to add neat little features like these little fill-ins I put in here. The goblet we're going to have to work on a different day. I have a couple ideas with that, but we'll get that another time. But thanks for watching. If you hit that like button if you like the video, and please subscribe. Hit the subscribe button, the little bell. This way you get to see anytime I post new content, which I'm trying to do on a weekly basis at this point. So I'm real happy with the way my vase came out. Hope you guys like it, and we'll see you next time.